Good evening, everyone, and let me wish everyone here a happy and healthy new year. It's a pleasure to be at the first meeting of the Cabinet in 2025. We'll start with the usual warning that there are no fire drills planned, but if the fire alarm is activated, which is a continuous siren with a red flashing light, please leave the building immediately, following the fire exit signs. Are there apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. I've received no apologies for absence.
Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting. To agree the minutes of the meeting of the committee on the 12th of December 2024 as a correct record. Are there any comments or amendments? I see none. Can I have your approval to sign the minutes? Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Any interest not already registered? Are there any such declarations? I see none. Item 3, questions from members, maximum 15 minutes. And I see one hand raised. Good evening, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair, and Happy New Year to all my colleagues and especially our hardworking officers. My question is a very simple one. The FIAC meeting on 7th of January, the Chair summed up the discussion on procurement by requesting that, as well as the note coming to Cabinet, there be a request from FIAC to, I quote, keep an open mind concerning a dedicated procurement officer. This is not reported in the minutes and it's not been reported in the papers for this meeting, and I just wanted to raise it with you because clearly that was a request from the Chair of FIAC on behalf of FIAC to the Cabinet as a whole, and I think it's important that it didn't get lost. So please could someone explain why it's not reported for this evening, and please could the Cabinet bear it in mind during the discussions on agenda item 8 tonight. Thank you.
Yes, Martin.
Thank you very much. On page 3 of your supplementary, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs down, members discussed the report and considered the process for the new strategy. Thorough consideration was also given to a procurement officer and whether this position was required, as well as discussion on a central hub for procurement. The use of frameworks was also considered, and that's the minute of it. Of course, we've always got an open mind as to how we approach procurement, but my report is later on for Cabinet to consider.
Yes.
Thank you, Martin, for that. My questions for clarification is when the Chair says, please can this note go to Cabinet with the following expression, which was, it's there on the recordings if you listen to it. I just wondered why that wasn't so. It just feels a small but important point. So I'd be very grateful if you'd bear that in mind. That is what the Chair said on the night. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from members? Oh, just before we go on to the next question, Councillor Maskell.
Obviously, you will have the opportunity of looking at the minutes in the FIAC meeting in due course. But of course, we will have an open mind in relation to procurement officer. And I don't think you'll allow us to forget that. But it's a very important element that we will move forward with in terms of our thinking processes.
All right, I believe I saw, yes, Councillor Purvis.
Okay, thank you. I'm talking about the current timetable for the local plan. Does a Cabinet member, i.e. Councillor Thornton, agree with us that this must be achieved before it is dictated to us by a mayor or whatever current unitary council this district joins?
Thank you. I'll pass that to Councillor Thornton.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And we knew from the NPPF update that we needed to address our LDS, which is our local development scheme, which is our timetable. That's coming to Cabinet, probably the next Cabinet, I believe. And that is dictating our timetable. We've got a very set timetable we'll be following to, and that will be in place. I think, from my point of view, it is essential that we get our local plan through as soon as possible with as many of our residents on board with us as possible in order to do so. It's never going to be an easy task, but I think we've got even more reasons. Certainly discussions I'm having with my residents at the moment in my ward is that you're going to have less representation on these things in the future. So it's really important we get what we can in place now to go forward, because if you go forward into a new regime without that set up, you're going to be pretty stuffed. So absolutely, we're going to be going all guns blazing to hit that timetable. The timetable will be coming forward. And I hope that collectively we can actually put some of our political concerns aside and do what's right for the district, because I think, you know, if we've got anything we need to do over the next few years, it's to do what's right by our residents so that when they go forward into the new setup, they're going in the strongest possible position, because they've got it good now. They don't realise, and we've got to make sure that we've put things in place as much as we can to make sure that's preserved for them for as long as possible, because I don't think any of us feel that they're going to be as well represented as they currently are, particularly when it comes to planning matters. So let's all do this together is my plea back to all of you, please. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I see Councillor Shay.
Thank you very much. I understand that KCC has withdrawn from the project that we know as Land East to the High Street and removed their assets from that process. Can you confirm, please, Cabinet, that that is correct? And if so, what are the consequences for the project scope and subsequently the timetable?
Yes, that's a very interesting question. I'll pass that to Councillor Horwood.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we've had discussions with Kent County Council who didn't want to proceed with the inclusion of the library element of it. They were very clear actually that Sevenoaks Library is one of the most used libraries in Kent. So it's not an indication of they want to have alternative plans for the site. It's just that they wanted to derive greater financial value from the scheme than was what discussed. The project will be coming forward. We are very keen to proceed with the Land East of High Street. It's critical to delivering a new leisure centre for Sevenoaks Town. Actually, with the removal of the scheme, we believe it's actually more viable and will be more likely, particularly as we obviously have one less partner to agree with to ensure that we meet the possible deadlines of reorganisation and the restriction of commitments to schemes, etc. So yes, in short, actually them removing themselves from the scheme has actually made the scheme a lot more viable and a lot more successful, and hopefully deliver on a new leisure centre for Sevenoaks Town.
Councillor Shay, did you want to?
May I?
Come back,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you very much, Councillor Horwood. That's really helpful and encouraging. And the leisure centre is something I think, if you don't mind, I'd just like to pick up on, because we know that we've got the contract in place until 2030 with a possible extension period. So it would be good to understand if you think that it's going to be possible to deliver a new leisure centre, as I understand is the ambition of the scheme. Will that new leisure centre likely to be realised by the time we get to the end of that contract term?
I'd need to remind myself of the timeline. So I think that the key really is ensuring that we commit to the contractual requirements of the scheme, and so that the wheels are in motion of delivering the leisure centre. In the leisure centre, obviously items that we'll be discussing sort of the contract. It does obviously give provision for if a leisure centre is rebuilt, etc. There are already requirements within the contract to sort of deal with that scenario. I think the timelines. It would possibly be beyond that timeline. I'd need to remind myself of the scheme, but I can write to her to clarifications of the update timetable.
Thank you. I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, Chair, and Happy New Year. Your papers report once again that the council's carrying quite a lot of vacancies in posts and understaffing, and we've raised that question before. And obviously I'm sure that the Cabinet is monitoring the impact of that on the delivery of services and staff morale. The last time when Councillor Skinner asked about it, reference was made to a scrutiny working party on staffing, which, though set up a year ago, has unfortunately yet to meet. So I'm wondering if the Cabinet could sort of cut through this and give a report to whichever committee you think is the appropriate one on the impact of this, and in particular in the current context of the new demands that reorganisation will undoubtedly create, so that understaffing gets multiplied in its impact potentially. If the Cabinet could report to the right committee on your view about the impact of understaffing and the number of vacancies on the performance of the council.
Thank you. I'm not going to address specific staffing issues, and I take the point. It does seem an area of operational concern that we have right staffing. I believe that all of our operational areas regularly report to their own advisory committees in the form of a red, amber, green type of risk assessment of where they stand. And that is the opportunity for us to evaluate and give feedback on the performance of those areas. Admittedly, those are lagging indicators, and if things were to change dramatically, I'm sure there would be an active process of adapting and informing if there were any dramatic changes. I'm looking to Pav just to see if he wants to add anything in the way of specifics.
Not much, Chairman. I'd just say that there are staffing challenges across the council. There's a number of areas where we're just not able to recruit. We've been out to advert numerous times. The cost of consultants in some areas is quite high. In other areas, we've held vacancies in order to be able to try and balance the budget as we go forward. And you're absolutely right, with the threat of devolution and local government reorganisation, it's going to have a huge impact on staffing. But again, this is something that we're looking into quite carefully.
So thank you. Very briefly, if you wanted to come.
Yes, whether you describe it as a threat or an opportunity, who knows? But I think it just underlines the point that regular reporting and assessment of the impact of the new demands that are being placed on the council and the new work that will have to be done will be very important for members to understand.
Thank you. I think that concludes our 15 minutes of fame, as it were. I'll thank everyone for their interesting and constructive questions, and we'll move on with the rest of the agenda. Item 4, matters referred from Council Audit Committee, Scrutiny Committee, SIL Spending Board or Cabinet Advisory Committees, if any.
There are none, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 5, budget update. And I'll ask Councillor Maskell to introduce the item.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I hope I last through this. I unfortunately have a little bit of difficulty with a cold and a cough today, but I've got my glass of water ready, and I know that Sandra might be over with a glass later if I need it. So I should be well looked after. So we'll see if I can get through this. This is a budget update for 2025-26. The report is stage 4 of the 2025-26 budget setting process. At the last Cabinet meeting on the 12th of December, there was an annual budget gap of 437,000. Cabinet requested that officers look for further savings, additional income options focused on a number of areas. Skiers for these items are included in appendices D and E. There have been a number of changes since the last meeting, including the provisional local government finance settlement, which Adrian will explain a little bit more detail afterwards. These changes have resulted in the annual budget gap increasing to 509,000. Despite the potential changes on the horizon due to local government reorganisation, I think that it's important for this council to continue on the same track that was agreed back in September. and has been followed through the advisory committees. We should ensure that this council remains in a strong financial position, which means continuing with the 10-year budget approach through to the council budget setting meeting in February, as this will ensure there are strong foundations in place for the journey ahead, recognizing that our approach may need to change. And we discussed this very fully in the Finance Committee meeting last week. And that was very fully endorsed, that approach, through that committee. Last week, FIAC worked through a number of budget-related reports in detail, including looking at the potential changes in assumptions included in the skiers this evening. FIAC were supportive of the changes to council tax increases and interest receipts, but they did raise concerns regarding changes to business rates retention. I would like to propose that Cabinet support all the skiers listed in Appendix D, which total a higher amount than the current budget gap, and put any excess into a new budget for the local government reorganisation. A very responsible approach, I feel. I will now hand over to Adrian to take us through further in more greater detail. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you very much. So I'll start off by running through the main reasons for the changes since the last report to Cabinet back in December. So the council tax base increased by less than the assumption, and Jessica will explain about this in the next report. The annual review of fees and charges has been completed and was reported to FIAC. This should deliver income above the previous assumption. The provisional local government finance settlement was announced on the 18th of December and included a number of items. The council tax increase referendum limit was confirmed as a higher of £5 or under 3%. An increase of 2.99% was already assumed, so this resulted in no change. The government announced a new recovery grant. This council was one of half of the councils that received nothing from that grant. The funding floor grant replaced the funding guarantee, and the amount reduced from £1.523 million to £1.047 million. The services grant has been discontinued, and this council received £16,000 for that in 2024-25. Rolled-in grants have continued into 25-26. The employers' national insurance increase was announced in the government's budget when it was mentioned that councils would be funded for this. Actual amounts have not yet been announced, but a methodology has been provided, which could have several interpretations. However, it looks likely that the council will only receive £197,000 out of the £404,000 increased cost. Figures for any of these items may change in the final local government finance settlement expected in early February. So these changes result in the annual budget gap increasing from £437,000 to £509,000. I'll now run through the skiers listed in Appendix D and detailed in Appendix E. So these are the skiers Cabinet asked officers to produce at the last meeting. So skier 18 is to reduce in shape from 4 to 3 issues per year. This would result in a saving of £12,000 per year. Skier 21 reduce operational spending on tourism, which would result in a saving of £15,000 per year. Skiers 19, 20 and 22 regarding the Prince Studio, Argyle Road heating and lighting and CCTV upgrade would result in no additional savings at this stage. So from the ideas so far, there's only potentially an annual saving of £27,000. Skier 24, reducing the management structure to achieve savings of £200,000 as requested by the leader. So the Chief Executive has this in hand and is confident this can be achieved. Moving on to the assumption changes that were discussed in detail at FIAC. So Skier 25, increasing the council tax increase assumption for 2026-27 and 2027-28 from 2% to 3%. This would match the referendum limits set by government in recent years, but there's no guarantee this level will continue. Year 26, increasing the business rates retention assumption for 26, 27 and 27, 28, in line with 25, 26. The government is intending to reset business rates from 2026, 27, which is likely to reduce the amount retained, but there's no detail on this yet. However, transitional arrangements would be expected to mitigate some of this change. And lastly, Skier 27, increasing the interest receipts assumption in line with the latest information from the Treasury advisors. So as Councillor Maskell mentioned, it's proposed that Cabinet support all of the skiers listed in Appendix D that deliver a saving or additional income. These total a higher amount than the current budget gap. Therefore, any excess could be put into a new budget for local government reorganisation. Also, as part of the budget process, we'll be reviewing reserves as we do each year and looking to again move reserves around to again set up a reserve for local government reorganisation for the same purpose. And this proposed approach, if supported by Cabinet and approved by Council, will once again result in a balanced 10-year budget. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Are there any comments or observations from other members of the Cabinet? Yes, Councillor Horwood.
Thank you, Chairman. Just looking at the general approach, you know, I think it's right that we consider the proposed approach of looking for the sort of like the 10-year budget, considering the levels of uncertainty at this time. We don't know when the reorganisation is going to happen. There's obviously no decision yet formally around what date the new authorities and the mayoral authority, etc., could come in. I do think at some point, though, when we get that level of certainty, we do need to start thinking about, you know, sort of how we revise the budget in accordance with that clarity, and look at, you know, whether we need to look at the 10-year budget or can find, you know, the savings long term to sort of procure safeguard services. The one thing that I would just highlight, you know, which took me by surprise, is the level of as a result of the government's budget and the employer's national insurance. You know, if you look at page 14. It highlights that the cost of this council is £404,000, of which there will be a shortfall of £207,000. So even though the government's going to give a grant to this council to partially meet that, it's still costing us £207,000. That is a significant sum of money, which I think really does reflect the sort of lack of appetite for local government, whilst, you know, obviously also endearing on local government reorganisation. So it is sad to note that as part of the report, but thank you.
Thank you for that observation. All right, I see no other active hands. Councillor Maskell, would you like to?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to highlight the work that's been done by officers and members in trying to getting to this conclusion. It's been a difficult road, a road that where we've been buffeted from external service sources. Members have been getting to grips with understanding council budget. And officers have worked extremely hard through the training process, and also working very hard to enable members to look at what is a very complex picture, and it has been very demanding in addition to all the other activities that they have been involved in over the last year. I have mentioned this before, but I think it's worth re-emphasising, and it is really important to emphasise the real professionalism of the finance team. Thank you.
Thank you, and well said. All right, I will put the recommendation to Cabinet. Recommendation item 5A. Consider the savings proposals for skiers listed in Appendix D and detailed in Appendix E, and decide whether to support each skier being included in the budget. If we take that first, I suppose my suggestion is that we adopt all of the recommended skiers, and if we would vote on that as a proposal and see how we go. All in favour of item A? Looks like it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item B, depending on the budget position following the recommendation above, which we now know, provide officers with any further instructions, which I believe we have already covered. Councillor Maskell has been working very diligently on that. He has taken input from all members of the Cabinet, including myself, and I'm very glad that so much work has been done to reflect those positions and expand on them. So thank you very much. I suppose that now means we are just endorsing the fact that we've already made instructions. Yes, Adrian.
Chairman, can I question that maybe that you put the further instructions to officers to put in the excess into a new budget for local government reorganisation?
Yes. Oh, we're voting effectively on that, yes. So can I have a show of hands, please? You have your instructions. Item 6 is calculation of tax base and other tax setting issues. Back to Councillor Maskell.
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out details of the calculation of the district's tax base for council setting purposes. These figures are used to determine tax rates for each of the council tax bands once the council's budget requirement is known. It also sets out the tax base by parish, which have been provided to the parish councils to enable the calculation of their individual precepts. The report also advises members of the timetable for setting the 2025-26 council tax. I hand over to Jess to go into further detail.
Thank you, Councillor Maskell. Thank you, Chairman. As part of the budget cycle, we're required to calculate the council tax base of the district for tax setting purposes for the coming financial year, and the calculation has to be approved by Cabinet and full council. The tax base is determined by converting all property and occupancy data to the equivalent number of Band D properties, and this figure is used to calculate the Band D council tax charge. This report shows that the current tax base for 24-25 is 52,394.75, and the tax base for 25-26 will be 53,008.33, which is an increase of 613 properties or 1.17%. This is in part due to the introduction of the second home premium, which is already assumed in the budget as approved by members previously. However, it should be noted that the target tax base growth is 730, and without the second home premium adjustment, the growth would be a mere 153 properties. This has had a negative impact on the budget, as mentioned in the previous report. Collection rates have remained steady, and therefore it is proposed to keep the expected collection rate at 99.4%. The increased tax base has been fed into the financial plan, and assuming that we opt for an increase in Band D of 2.99%, we will raise just over 13.3 million. The timetable leading up to the setting the council tax for 25-26 is also included in the report. The major precepting authorities' council taxes should be known in advance of this council setting the tax for the whole district on the 25th of February. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions from Cabinet members on this? Councillor Maskell, did you want to sum up at all? Oh, good. Right. I'm going to save my voice a little bit. If I can just say, shall we vote on the... Yes, go ahead.
Actually, it wasn't a question. It was just that 99.4 is extraordinary. brilliant guys, and I think we don't shout about our successes enough, but that's one of the best claim rates, I believe, in the county, if not nationally. So good on you, and thank you very much. I just wanted to make a note of that, please. Thank you.
Oh, good point. Well said. All right, so we have recommendations A through D. And as I say, I'm going to save my voice and just say, can we vote on those in full as per the papers? And the recommendation is that whatever we go with here goes to council. Councillor Maskell, are you voting? Oh, sorry, Councillor Horwood, are you voting? Oh, yes, please vote. That's all in favour. Thank you. All right, item 7, discretionary rate relief. And I'm looking to see which cabinet member wants to address that again. And I'm afraid it's Councillor Maskell again.
Thank you, Chair. You won't hear it very much from me now. This is a standard annual report. And I'll just hand straight over to Tim to be the expert and go into the details on this one. Tim.
Thank you, Councillor Maskell. Thank you, Chairman. Council requires potential recipients of discretionary rate relief to submit a formal application every 2 years, reporting to members for approval of the relief every year. 25-26 is the start of a new 2-year cycle. Appendix B on page 77 of the report sets out the recommendations for awarding discretionary rate relief for 25-26 to ratepayers who have submitted or are expected to submit an application by the 1st of March 2025. The report contains recommendations for 2 categories: rate relief for not-for-profit organisations and top-up relief for charities and community amateur sports clubs. The estimates are based on the provisional multipliers announced in the autumn statement on the 30th of October 2024. The estimated gross relief, if all recommendations are approved, amounts to £228,865. The non-profit organisations get 80% relief, and the charities and community amateur sports clubs get 20% top-up, as there's already an 80% mandatory relief. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Tim. Councillor Maskell, anything further to add?
I will just add that this was very thoroughly examined at the FIAC committee meeting, and a large number of questions were forwarded, but they were very happy with the outcome results from that examination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll put unless there are any other comments or questions, I'll put the recommendation, which is members are asked to approve the proposals for granting relief for business rates for 2025-26 as set out in Appendix B. Can I have your approval, please? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 8 is procurement update. Councillor Maskell.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, I just wanted to emphasise on this particular document before Martin goes into further detail on it, just to say that this document, as we indicated at the FIAC committee meeting, is a document which looks at our position and processes going forward at this stage within procurement in answer to audit committee and audits that have gone prior to this report being produced. Martin will go into some detail about the importance of this document, and will emphasise certain elements which I will come back on, if I may, when he finishes his report.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you very much. And actually, I will be quite brief. You've all read my report, and thank you very much for considering it. And I would like to thank Councillor Maskell for his time early in the drafting process. And I was intending to give you some just some highlights, very, very brief highlights, and then I'll answer any questions you have. As you know, and as Councillor Maskell set out, the report outlines our current approach. And this is because we are awaiting regulations. The Procurement Act 2023 is coming into effect in February. And when they are received, we'll be in a position to implement all of the remaining audit recommendations which haven't yet been addressed because we are awaiting those regulations. It's as simple as that. Members, I think, can be rightly proud of the procurement processes that we've had, particularly around the leisure procurement. That was a great success and something that I think we're all proud of. So on current timetables, a strategy will be devised and will be before members in the summer. I do have more things, but they are all set out in my report, which you will have all read, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Martin. Are there any questions from the Cabinet? I think your report was very comprehensive, Martin. I appreciate that very much, and the work that Councillor Maskell put into it as well. And the discussion that's taken place already at FIAC, and I think that this is an important step towards a very interesting change in procurement habits. I think it does recognize that local authorities have an involvement with social life and supporting local economy. And I think this, hopefully the regulations won't mess it up too much, but I think the intention behind the Act was to make it easier and somewhat less risky for the evaluation and use of local businesses where applicable in our procurement cycle. And I find that a very positive step. So it's something that I know Sevenoaks will put its unique mark on and be regarded as another outstanding aspect of our council. So if I can just put the motion to the Cabinet, then Councillor Maskell, yes.
Thank you. I just, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that much has been made and a great deal of interest there has been around the procurement process. And this has arisen for the benefit of Cabinet. The process has been audited a year or two ago, and areas that were highlighted were identified as areas that needed improvement. It didn't actually identify that there was a huge problem with procurement, and I just wanted to emphasize that. I know members of both sides have been extremely interested in this process and are very eager, as we all as members are very eager to ensure that public money is spent appropriately and accordingly. But there is no real concerns within any of the audit processes that there is a problem in this regard. Just maybe a tightening up of the issues around procurement, and in relation to FIAC and in connection to what Sandra was identifying, the process going forward. There is a discussion around the issue of, do we need a procurement manager, and do we need, or is it better to be done within this organisation resource-wise to be done in another way? And officers have been charged to be looking at the most cost-effective way of moving forward, and it will be looked at in relation to cost effectiveness. I also wanted to emphasise for Cabinet that the procurement process that we adopt is not something that is outlandish it is something that is common and is seen as being an appropriate way of operating within local government and within district councils in particular. And it's all to do with size, cost savings, etc. So I think what we have to be careful of is that we don't emphasize a problem where there isn't one, and we don't emphasize a problem that increases our costs rather than reduces it. But we, of course, officers, I know, they are very professional, and they look at these things to ensure that their appropriate costs are made and they are real ways of making savings. And I bow to their professionalism, listen to both sides of the argument, and am very, very happy that this is being dealt with appropriately. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And sorry, I forgot to ask you to comment directly. All right. Well, I'll read the motion that the Council's approach to procurement and to the implementation of the Procurement Act 2023 be approved. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 9, financial monitoring 2024-25 to the end of November 2024. Councillor Maskell.
I'll be with you in a moment, Chair.
No problem.
Good. I have it.
Quite heart failure.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, not heart failure. I'm sure I could have winged it. Financial monitoring report being presented today is for the period up to November 2024 and provides the forecast for the financial year to March 2025. The report is currently showing that there is a forecasted unfavorable variance of 124,000, which is an improvement from the August forecast, which was brought to Cabinet on the 14th of November. Alan will go in further detail regarding the forecasted position, but there was a healthy debate at the Finance and Advisory Committee, who noted the report but did not make any additional recommendations. I will now hand over to Alan.
Thank you, Chairman. So as Councillor Maskell's already said, the report in front of you today is the revenue monitoring position up to November 24 and shows the forecast position to March 25. There hasn't been any real significant changes since the August monitoring, which I feel actually shows a stable financial position, although officers will continue to look for a way to reduce this unfavourable variance further. All significant areas of variance have been well discussed by members, particularly of the Fire Committee. And the main reasons for the change in the forecast since the last report are essentially an improvement in interest receipts, as our cash balances are in a very healthy position and interest receipts remain higher than in previous years, and also the inclusion of the actual agreed pay award, which resulted in a £73,000 saving compared to the budget assumption. In regard to the capital programme, the budget for the year is 33.6 million and the current forecast is 7.5 million. The difference is due to the delay in the Bevan Place as that is re-evaluated. The delay in terms of the approved funding for Quercus housing not being required to date, and also the delay in the White Oak residential as we look for a new contractor. Thank you, Chairman. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? I see none. Councillor Maskell, did you want to sum up? No. I'll put the recommendation to Cabinet then. To note the report and consider any comments from Finance and Investment Advisory Committee. Can I see your approval, please? Thank you. That's unanimous. Item 10, leisure interim contract 6-month update. Councillor Dyball.
Thank you, Chair. The 6-monthly update in this report on the performance of the interim leisure contract for Edenbridge and Sevenoaks Leisure Centres and Lullingston Park Golf Course covers the 6-month period from April to September 2024. I won't go into any of the details here in my introduction, as you have a comprehensive report before you this evening. However, I will say that the contract continues to perform extremely well, especially during Q1, and as a result, a revised Year 2 forecast is included in this report. Total usage across all sites has seen an increase across the period, and this can be attributed to an increase in the overall membership at both leisure centres. And the usage at Lullingston Park Golf Course has seen an increase during Q2, which was obviously the peak golf season, despite the poor weather. Memberships have steadily increased across all 3 facilities, and the reporting requirements on page 129 of your papers are all very positive, all green. And plenty of stats to get your teeth into in the report too. The 6-monthly interim leisure contract update was presented to the People and Places Advisory Committee on the 10th of December, where it was fully debated following an informative slide presentation, which we've now come to expect and look forward to from the Everyone Active team, who were very happy to take questions from members. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Catherine, and she will take you through some of the finer details of the report. Thank you. Catherine.
Thank you, Councillor Dyball. Thank you, Chair. As Councillor Dyball has already pointed out, it is a very positive report over the period in terms of performance. And in the report, it highlights the success of improvements to both memberships and usage. Everyone Active worked very closely with Sevenoaks District Council in delivering their health and wellbeing outcomes, which are detailed in the report, and in their maintenance of the centres. We meet with them regularly, holding quarterly meetings more formally, but actually on a day-to-day basis, they come to us if there's anything that they need to raise. I won't actually go through all of the statistics, otherwise I think we might be here all evening, but I'm more than happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions about the statistics? I know we all love a good stat, but I don't see any hands raised. So, Councillor Dyball, did you want to sum up at all?
Sorry, I didn't turn my mic off then. No, I've nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'll put the recommendation to Cabinet. To note the performance of Everyone Active in providing leisure facilities and services for the community and visitors of Sevenoaks District for the period April 2024 to September 2024. Can I see your approval, please? And that again is unanimous. Thank you very much. And finally, item 10, and you'll notice this is on gold papers. So I would ask you, if at all possible, to avoid referring to anything or suggesting we discuss anything that would need to move the Cabinet meeting into closed session. However, if that's the wish of colleagues, then so be it. Councillor Dyball.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to interrupt, Chairman. We do actually need to resolve to go into private as the whole report is in exempt information.
Of course, thank you. All right, so let me read this out. I move from the chair under section 100A, brackets 4, close brackets, of Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting when considering agenda item 11, on the grounds that likely disclosure of exempt information is involved as defined by Schedule 12A paragraph 3, information relating to financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information, close brackets. Can I move that motion?